Hello and welcome to iBuzz. I'm your host, Nosheen Bukhari, and we will be discussing some news, views, and reviews from the entertainment world, followed by a very interesting review on the movie Whiplash. But first things first, let me quickly take you to the top stories of the day. Samuel E. Wright tributes paid to actor who voiced Crab in The Little Mermaid. Arnold Schwarzenegger has the #2 movie on Netflix. Tom Hiddleston reveals the MCU's future is predetermined by the TVA in Loki. Moby discusses music, influences, and missing his mother's funeral in new film. Selena Gomez, Khalid, and Marshmello to wow fans with music at UEFA Champions League final. And now moving to the top story of the day. In just over 2 weeks, Marvel's third Disney Plus original series Loki will premiere. With new footage and interviews now releasing on a near daily basis, fans have already learned quite a bit about the show, and there's still more to come. To discuss this further, we have entertainment journalist Alice Oliver with us. Alice, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be here.
So, Alice, Loki will be finally seen as a complete story. What should fans mostly expect from this series?
Oh, I think lots of twists and turns, and I think it's really exciting to see a whole bunch of new characters being introduced as well, and getting to explore these new storylines. The fact that they're really using the multiverse and this idea of time travel just opens the door so much for so much creativity, for so many different locations and landscapes that we haven't seen before. It's the one that I've been the most excited about. I thought WandaVision was brilliant, and I think that just gave us a little taste of what's to come. And I think this is going to be something quite special. And they're already talking about a second season, and I heard whispers even that maybe even a third season already, because the hype has been so huge, and people are just drawn to Loki as a character. I think he's very entertaining, but then also incredibly powerful, which makes him just a brilliant character to follow, I think.
Right. And Alice, also Marvel is releasing series on Disney one after another. First it was WandaVision, then Falcon and the White Soldier, and now Loki. Do you think there is too much of a bombardment going on of superhero series?
It's quite intense, but that's obviously just what their focus is now at the moment. There is obviously a market for it still. People are still very interested. And I think when Endgame came out, people weren't really sure, well, what's going to happen now? You know, they'd spent, films and films adapting and getting to know these characters. And then it just ended. And for a lot of the fans, it would have been like, well, what am I going to do now? And so it's like just the progression of it. And it's a way to keep those characters alive for the fans, I think. But it is quite intense. I'm sure it's very intense for the production crew as well. It's just they look at their calendar and it's like, oh, no holiday for me this year.
Right. And Tom Hiddleston, he already has pulled it off really well from a villain to a hero in the movie. I mean, this was an amazing transition. But what surprising elements do you think will be added now that the character is pretty much clear to the fans?
I think it's really hard to say, because his whole thing is being this god of mischief, and he's an expert trickster. So anything that you see Loki doing, or however you see him behaving, that might not necessarily be the truth. You've always got a second guess with him. So even when he's coming across as the hero, and we saw in some of the Avengers films that he had some moments where you thought, oh, is he becoming the good guy? Is he going to help save the day? And then he would just turn on a dime, because what we've seen so far, he's truly out for himself. And that's his main motivation, is for him to get what he wants, and for him to progress his own narrative the way that he wants to, regardless of what Thor is doing or what the other Avengers are doing. So it really is hard to say, but it's going to be interesting now that with the TVA coming in, what authority that they're going to have over him, and if they put him in a position where actually he does have to comply with what they're saying, and he does have to help them, even if he doesn't really want to, just to get his freedom back.
Right, right. And also Tom Hiddleston's comment about Loki, which says too many of his restrictions. I mean, that is also interesting. What exactly, in your opinion, does this tell the fans?
Oh, I'm not sure. Maybe that there might be some more powerful adversaries to come, and we've seen that he can be captured, and that he is restricted in that way. So I'm not sure. We'll have to keep an eye on that. I feel like this is certainly going to be the most interesting in terms of how they unravel the story. I thought, like I've already said, but WandaVision did a great job at first because you just didn't know where that was going, and you got so many different iterations of this life that obviously Wanda had built for herself. And I think we're going to get something similar with Loki, with sort of traveling the multiverse or the omniverse, and maybe even traveling different timelines. So it's just going to be really interesting to see how that all unfolds.
Right. And Alice, how impactful do you see the series will be for Marvel, especially the Loki fans, in your opinion?
I think it will be a big one. And I think when the Marvel films, when that whole narrative wrapped up with Endgame, you felt like, oh, I want more Loki. I could do with seeing more Loki. He's usually got such great, and Tom Hiddleston as well just brings something so brilliant to the character. But he's always got such great chemistry with the other characters that he's on screen with, even if they are his enemy. And I think this will just really fill a hole that you sort of felt was left when the Endgame film sort of came about and that narrative wrapped up. So I think for Loki fans and just Marvel fans in general, this will be a really interesting one to follow.
Right. Alice, also 4 new character posters were also revealed. Do you find this edition interesting? And I mean, how many questions did it raise in your mind about those new characters?
It's just exciting to get to know new characters, and it's great that they've been able to develop these new characters and give them sort of their own series. They're not really characters that we're familiar with, maybe unless you've read the comics, that you know much about. So it's going to be great to see them develop on screen alongside Loki and see how they fit into this world as well.
Right. Also, Doctor Strange 2 writer addresses that Loki's connection to Benedict Cumberbatch. I mean, there is a sequel that we're smelling. How surprising is that?
Not really surprising at all, I think. And those two together, obviously Benedict Cumberbatch and Tom Hiddleston, just a brilliant combo. And again, it's to do with that, with Doctor Strange, there was so much scope for creativity because you're seeing all these sort of different landscapes and locations and different versions of reality that you wouldn't have seen before. So that ties in quite nicely with obviously what Loki's getting up to now. And it just seems like the logical next step from what we'd already seen. You know, we'd seen some sort of time travel and time bending and multi-universe theory in the other event in the films, in the Avengers films. And then now we're just going into that head on. And it's just going to be a great opportunity for the people working on it as well to develop these new scenes and these new scenarios and these new worlds. I think visually it's going to be really, really interesting.
Right. And also when we talk about the connections, we have seen this happening previously, that one character is mentioned in another movie, just like Wolverine is mentioned in Deadpool, but we have never seen them together. So do you think that this can be something of that sort? It's just a hint, and probably we're never going to see them on the same screen?
It's interesting. You'd have to really try and do it well to avoid it being too cheesy or too gimmicky and it just being oh, you know, we're doing this because we feel like the fans might want to see it. If you can develop a story there and explain why logically certain two characters would be alongside each other, then it can work. But you've got to be careful about just shoving them together in the same film or in the same television show without giving it a proper, deep explanation as to why they would be in that situation. Because then otherwise it just becomes, you know, it's just a way to excite the fans or just a way to, you know, grab more money or whatever. And it really loses the heart of it, I think.
Right. Also, cast and crew, they're revealing more and more tidbits about the project, including just how influential the TVA has been to the MCU. What exactly that mean in your opinion?
It almost means that everything that we've seen was always planned. You know, someone was pulling the strings somewhere. And it just also means that there's so many different timelines now that maybe we haven't seen, which again just opens the doors massively for future projects of, well, And what I was thinking as well is that this does provide a bit of an opportunity for Robert Downey Jr. to revive his character of Iron Man. I don't know if that's going to happen. I have no idea if that's something they're talking about. But they've opened the door for things like that now, because we could just visit a timeline where that didn't happen and where Iron Man didn't die. So it's just really blown the doors open for this, I think. And if they do it well, then I think they'll be able to go off that momentum, and they will be able to start showing us different timelines and maybe bring back old characters. As long as it just doesn't feel tired and like you're seeing the same old thing, then I think it would really work.
Right. And about Loki, I mean, fans developed a different kind of connection, a love-and-hate relationship with this character, especially when he was doing the negative part. Do you think that it will be impactful when now Loki is presented as a hero? Like you said, that we never know, he's a good guy and he's a bad guy at the same time. But on the whole, he will be shown as a hero. So do you think that he will get much of an acceptance in that role this time?
I think definitely. I think people you're already rooting for him a little bit, even when he was doing things that were going against what the Avengers were trying to do. You were kind of like, oh yeah, but I'd like to see how this plays out, because you don't really know what he wants ultimately. Like, what is his ultimate desire? What is his ultimate goal? So it's just interesting to kind of be drip fed more information about what that might be. But I think people are definitely ready to see him as a hero, and just always knowing that he could just flip at any moment. And it's like, no, he might just decide that he's completely going to go against everything we've seen and then become the villain again. And that's going to be interesting for the viewers and for the fans, I think, to just kind of always be wondering, well, what is he really thinking?
Right. And also, Alice, Disney's approach for connecting the fans back to Marvel. I mean, the entire previous year, it was without any superhero movie, but now Disney has come up with this great idea of starting series. So what are your thoughts on this, and how impactful do you see this happening to Marvel and the fans both?
So when it started with WandaVision, and then when that came out, that really did impress me. I thought the way it started, it was just really intriguing. It left you with so many questions, and it left you wanting to watch more. And then with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it was fine, but it just felt like another action show. There wasn't really anything. There wasn't anything as sort of in-depth or as intriguing about that. It was great to see those characters develop more, and it was great to kind of see that story arc, and visually it was very impressive. But it just wasn't as intriguing, I think. But with WandaVision, I think that showed what they could do, and that shows where they can go with it. And I'm expecting the same with Loki. And then once they sort of figure out what does work, you know, what the fans want, what is the most kind of unique way of telling these stories and the most unique way of developing these characters, then maybe they'll find their flow, and then it will become, you know, maybe even bigger than the films were.
Right. Alice, it was wonderful having you on board. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much.
That was Alice Oliver with her thoughts on the new Loki Disney Plus series. And now moving to other story details of the day. Tributes have been paid to U.S. actor Samuel E. Wright, best known for voicing Sebastian the Crab in Disney's The Little Mermaid. He has died at the age of 74. Wright sang the 1989 animation's Oscar-winning song Under the Sea and went on to play Mufasa in the original Broadway production of The Lion King. Other roles included jazz star Dizzy Gillespie in Clint Eastwood's Bird. Disney marked the actor's death with a billboard tribute at the Lion King musical's original New York home. Arnold Schwarzenegger's full-time return to acting has been strange to say the least, in that it's seen him head back to the well and suffer from the law of diminishing returns and a fair few box office bombs. But he's also somehow still managing to deliver some of the better performances of his career. Both of his recent Terminator performances in Genesis and Dark Fate underwhelmed, and his grand comeback vehicle, The Last Stand, flopped despite being an energetic and fun old-school actioner. Escape Plan, meanwhile, was a solid hit, one that saw Arnold having a ball of a time after finally co-starring with Sylvester Stallone. American musician Moby looks back on his life in a new documentary sharing the highs and lows of his fame, including being under the influence of drugs that he missed his mother's funeral. In Moby Doc, the 55-year-old opens up about his past substance abuse animal rights activism, and chart success with #1 albums like 1999's Play and 18 released 3 years later. As well as the documentary, Moby is also releasing album Reprise this week, in which he reworks on some of his famous past songs. Selena Gomez, Khalid, and Marshmello are all set to enthrall audience with their performances at the opening ceremony of UEFA Champions League final on Saturday. Marshmello broke the news on Monday that he has shared a video showing him pulling random miniature soccer balls out of a bowl to reveal his co-star's name. And that is it from the newsroom. We will be right back after a quick short break. Stay tuned to find out more. And we're back with our second segment, in which we will be reviewing the 2014 drama Whiplash, a story in which Andrew enrolls in a music conservatory to become a drummer, but he is mentored by Terence Fletcher, whose unconventional training methods push him beyond the boundaries of reason and sensibility. Directed by Damien Chazelle, the movie won Academy Awards for Best Supporting Actor, Best Sound Mixing, and Best Film Editing. To review Whiplash, we have film critic Mayank Shekhar with us. Mayank, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Nosheen.
So, Mayank, no fancy story, nothing complicated, yet the movie scored 8.5 on IMDb.
Well, you know, when you asked me to speak about Whiplash, the first thing that occurred to me is, of course, it's a 2014 film. But it's had an impact far more in 2001. I was thinking about it because the two things I watched recently, okay? And I could sense Whiplash almost in the background of those two things, and both from the subcontinent. One is A.R. Rahman, the musical genius's first film as a storyteller. That's 99 songs that came out recently. And I had a conversation with Rahman, and he mentioned Whiplash and how a film like that could make jazz such a popular art form for people who are not into the music genre to begin with, right? And then I saw the film, and there's an extended jazz drum sequence in the movie in 99 songs. And I thought immediately, okay, there is a Whiplash connection here. The other one, of course, is this film that I discussed with you recently, The Disciple, which has come on Netflix, which won a top award at the Venice Film, again, a film from Bombay. And again, it looks at the theme of perfectionism and mediocrity of the guru and the shikha, or the master or the disciple so well that I'm pretty sure Whiplash also had something to do with it in terms of inspiration. So, small film, sure, a huge film over a period of time. And that's really how great films are. They could turn out to be small at the point they come out. In fact, this one was, an adaptation of a short film that Damien Chazelle had made right before in 2013. To just check out if people will like it. That film won an award at Sundance, and then he made this extended version of that short film, which is the Whiplash. What's interesting about the Oscars, because you mentioned Nosheen, is that was not nominated for Best Original Screenplay Oscars, although it's an original screenplay, because the Oscars felt that it's an adapted screenplay because he's already made a short film before this on the same subject. But of course, it finally went on to win the best editing and the best sound mixing. Sound mixing, obvious. Most movies about music of this nature should win sound awards in any case. But the most deserving, without a doubt in my head, would have to be J.K. Simmons. I mean, what a fabulous performance. I still, when I think about him, I think about him like doing that, when he's in a conductor, when he's a conductor, he's stopping the act, as it were, when the performance is on. It haunts you for a very long time.
Right. And Mayank, about Teller's performance, can we talk about that? I mean, his total investment in the performance makes the viewers even more hooked to the screen.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a film about action and reaction, an actor and a reactor. The actor, in a real sense, is J.K. Simmons, which is probably why, he still haunts us in our dreams, as it were. He is an embodiment of all the bad teachers we've ever had, all the really super strict ones who, in pursuit of excellence or in pursuit of perfection, really affect our minds. It could be anything. It could be, it could be a teacher who taught us in school. I've heard of filmmakers of a similar persuasion. They seem to bite their actors sometimes. They really yell and they throw stuff on the set. So in that sense, there is a direct link to a personality type that we also see quite commonly in the arts being applied here. But I think J.K. Simmons works because he's a perfect board, a sounding board that he finds in Mike Teller's, and whose performance is not so obviously great because he's supposed to be calm and collected and actually, seething with anger, but all of it is inside him. And I think the way he keeps it inside is by itself, I think, a masterclass of sorts in subtlety in a performance. And I think it was fabulous. I think it did not get as well noticed purely because, J.K. Simmons, by virtue of the role that he was playing, was pretty much eating up every single scene in the movie.
Right, and also the flawless in Fletcher's performance also tells us that the reality, how the music and entertainment industry works, the amount of pressure these gurus have on themselves, and then, they transfer it to their apprentices.
Absolutely. I think it gets it bang on in terms of what it's trying to say, doesn't miss a beat at any point in time. And it's not like while on the face of it, it does seem like a hero-villain story, or at least the oppressor-oppressed story. But, there are enough shades of gray in each character to justify to some extent why they're behaving the way they are. They're not imbeciles, although they seem it. And they're not imbeciles purely because they actually represent a certain world where such characters, such a pursuit of perfection, especially in the arts, is a dumb thing. And God knows how many people have been through this sort of predicament and somehow or the other, come out of it alive. But, and because they constantly use Charlie Boom Boom Parker's example, Charlie Boom Boom Parker was one of the top jazz exponents in the history of the music form. And it's almost like an ode to him, but he had to go through the same level of rigor and the same level of humiliation to reach where he did, almost making it seem like it's okay. Some people manage it, some people don't, almost making it seem that the young boy in the film, there's a problem with him, but actually not. I think there is a lot of nuance. I think there's a lot of grayness. There are a lot of levels in which, you can see the film. But in all those levels put together, a movie that's so memorable that in 2021, Nosheen, we're discussing it here on your channel.
Exactly. And in continuation to that, some of the critics have come up with an opinion that there was a lot of inaccuracy in the story. Of course, we know that the critics can never be happy, but we cannot even ignore the facts that they bring up. So what is your opinion on that? And how do you think that if it was inaccurate or there was certain inaccuracies in the movie, how perfectly they were depicted in the movie?
Frankly speaking, I am not going to destroy a movie experience by sitting and looking at inaccuracies or even reading up in terms of where they could have been consistent or inconsistent. I think films per se is a very visceral medium. It has to emotionally connect with you, and when it's connecting with you. And at that point, you know what I mean? At that point, you can feel it in your gut that it's working for you. Now, if I'm going to get deep into the history of the art form or anything of that nature, and I'm presuming those are the inaccuracies you're talking about, Nosheen, because I haven't personally read about them, but I'm presuming if that's what you're doing, I mean, that's a level aside. What you cannot fault this film for, and in fact, what you cannot fault Damien Chazelle for, is his love for jazz music. It almost seemed like he's become a filmmaker to spread the word of jazz, because after Whiplash, he goes on to make La La Land. And if you watch the film carefully, you'll also see lines out there where he's again promoting jazz as a musical art form, where he's still, trying to get the audiences connected with what's otherwise not seen as a particularly popular genre of music. So I think it's coming from a great space. I think a director has a point to make, and he makes it very, very effectively. The writing is spot on, and the performances couldn't have been better. Now, am I going to sit and read an encyclopedia on the music form? Maybe I would, and maybe I'll find flaws in it from that perspective. But there is no flaw in something that hits you so hard as Whiplash did.
Right. So Mayank, moment of truth. Three major reasons. Why would you recommend the movie to our viewers?
Well, three very, very simple reasons. One is your love for jazz. If you don't love it already, you will begin to. If you love it already, that's a movie you would have watched in any case. J.K. Simmons and his performance, I mean, he still sends, nightmares into my sleep every once in a while, given that he represents a certain kind of person that all of us in our lives have sort of encountered in our own ways, whether it's a teacher from high school or primary school, all the way to an art form, people who are directing or conducting that work, as it were. Bad bosses would be a great example too, looking for perfection, all right, but being a jerk, really. And the third and the most important, of course, will always be the case, is the director. I mean, it's a fine work put together with a level of finesse that a subject like this deserves. Damon Chazelle it is. That's the number 3, and in fact, perhaps even the number 1 reason.
Right. Mayank, thank you very much indeed. I really enjoyed this discussion with you.
Thank you so much for having me, Nasheen.
That was Mayank Shekhar, and I'm pretty much sure that you are convinced to watch this movie. And that is it from our today's episode. We hope you liked it. Again, don't forget to share your feedback on the social media links mentioned down below. We'll see you next time with some more entertainment news. Until then, take care and goodbye.